So I recently just beat Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is basically a perfect game to me. It takes the best elements from the previous entries in the series and wraps them up in a campy, 80s action flick feeling 60s spy romp, filled to the brim with fan service, wonderful characters, and a smart, well-written plot that almost always knows how to perfectly keep its silly tone while also being a serious talk about war, PTSD, and the future of mankind. Snake Eater's plot starts off simple enough, with a man on a rescue mission, before blossoming into a winding tale of espionage, patriotism, betrayal, honor, and the loss of innocence. We follow Naked Snake as he is thrown headfirst into the jungles of Russia to save a rocket scientist by the name of Sokolov. But things quickly turn sour when his ex-mentor and mother figure by the name of the Boss defects and joins a splinter faction of the Russian regime, which results in Snake being sent into the jungle once more to put a stop to the creation of a super weapon and to put an end to the boss's life and enigmatic plans. On his mission, Snake runs across the PTSD-riddled remnants of a once heroic squad of soldiers known as the Cobra Unit, is put into the sights of a brash Russian major and a sadistic military leader before finally facing it off against the boss herself as Snake makes his way deeper and deeper into the Russian wildlands. The story is filled with almost constant twists and turns, and for the most part takes its story quite seriously, but it never loses the sense of fun and playfulness that it also has. It plays a fine balancing act of being extremely cheesy, but also being extremely sincere and charming with its tale. In terms of the characters, you would think that everyone would be a badass soldier, but in reality, Snake and the rest of the Fox team are a bunch of goofy dumbasses. Naked Snake is a military savant, awkward but driven with his belief in his country and those he befriends. He is great as the main character, and this works so well as an origin story for the legend that is Big Boss. Snake starts off as a cocky yet well-meaning special operative, before becoming a hardened yet still hopeful soldier of legend. Well, until the truth of all that is going on is revealed. Snake has a lot of humanity, and is even on many levels relatable, and that's what makes him work really well. He gets excited over things he likes, almost to an obsessive degree, has a fun sense of humor at the right moments, and even with all the bloodshed around him, is willing to hold off on major violence as long as he can. Major Zero is the dry British intelligence officer guiding Fox on their mission. Gruff on occasion, but it's clear he really does care about those under his command. While he is a proud Brit and James Bond buff, Zero also has a fondness for the freedom of the US and does all he can to ensure the safety of the free world. Paramedic is a goddamn dork and I love her for that. She is a comedic, film-obsessed, wildlife knowledgeable otaku who simply cares for what is best for Snake. She constantly gives the unamused and uninterested Snake film trivia and information on the jungle, while also getting annoyed at Snake's namely voracious interest in eating any living animal he comes across in the jungle. Sigint is the easily excitable weapons guy of the team, and while none of his information is ever acquired like paramedics or Major Zero's, it was fun to listen to him admire Snake's passion for the topic of weapons and field gadgets. Finally, we get to Eva, the classic femme fatale spy, who has a will-they, won't-they relationship with Snake. You never truly get a solid feeling of whose team she's on, and that makes her all the more fun, since she clearly has feelings forming for the blooming soldier that is Snake. There's also the cowardly, pacifistic Sokolov, and the drunk, prideful, and patriotic Granin. On the villain side of things, whoo boy, there is so much variety and enjoyment to be had here, ranging from the silly and superpowered Cobra unit that feel like a Saturday morning lineup of baddies, to the power-crazed likes of Colonel Volgin, right down to the sympathetic and constantly mysterious traitorous boss who keeps testing Snake throughout the story. I have to say, I adore Ocelot here. He's a smug, arrogant, youthful major who grows to idolize Snake. His sense of honor and the rivalry-filled relationship between him and Snake is just so much fun to watch play out, with the twinkie gunslinger chasing down the senpai-like soldier that he admires. Volgin is just pure, chaotic, classic evil. He wants control, and he'll stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He isn't really deep, but he doesn't have to be. He is the big, scary, sadistic bad guy standing against the good of the world, and Snake needs to put a stop to him. Simple enough. The Cobra unit is interesting, because they aren't full-on evil like Volgin, more so each a test and showcase of emotions Snake has never felt in combat. They are a bit one-note, but they hit said note well, even if they are extremely silly. The boss is one of the best antagonists in the entire series, and saying anything past that might spoil what her story is, and that would be a disservice to both her and the game. Just know her tale is a tragic end, and one of sadness and an odd hope for the future. I want to quickly mention before I talk about everything else that I played through both the HD re-release of Snake Eater fully, and right up to the end of the PS2 original release. Almost all the footage you'll see will be from the HD version, but even though I figure people will know which version is which, I'll still label the PS2 footage. Snake Eater is incredibly addicting and very satisfying to play, but it's also a major showcase of timely jank that is still darn fun, despite some of its shortcomings. Let me just get this out of the way. I suck at stealth games. I love them, but I am absolutely terrible at them. So when a stealth game gives you the option to go Rambo most of the time while also still giving you the option of being stealthy completely all the way through, I respect it even more. You'll be sneaking and swinging around the massive dense jungle while also running around military complexes, tranking and knocking out bad guys, slitting throats, hunting animals to survive, and exploring and surviving with primitive 1960s spy equipment. The gameplay on paper is a fairly basic arcade stealth game, where you can in theory sneak your way pacifistically through the entire game. The game never punishes you for going in guns blazing, thankfully, and never asks you to feel bad, past showing the results of your actions later on in a really great moment. Snake's moveset includes creeping around, grabbing guys to interrogate, knock out, or straight up kill off, and of course CQC, close quarters combat. All these work for the most part fairly darn well. Sneaking is a bit of an odd case since no matter how quiet I was or what environment I was in, enemies would still hear me sneaking up on them, so I never really got it to work how it should. Again, I just suck at these sort of games. You'll get your hands on a wide variety of weapons scattered around the game, all of which are useful to whatever playstyles you are going for, whether it be pistols, AK-47s, shotguns, rocket launchers, non-lethal means like flash grenades, or even things like chloroform rags. You got a lot to play with decision-wise. Honestly, despite the linear story, which even then has some branching moments and alternate cutscenes and story beats,
I've been trained to do this kind of thing myself.
Just relax and let me handle it.
Okay.
I can't believe how small it is.
Yeah, but it gets the job done.
Really? Here, lift up your hips.
Hey, you're not such a bad guy after all. I guess not all Americans are dogs.
You mean it?
Yeah.
The entire game is a big open sandbox you're allowed to tackle however you might want to. One of the coolest things you can do is sometimes you'll find enemy outposts and bases, and after looting these can destroy bits of them, such as the ration storehouse or their transport and air support, and it will affect them in various ways over the course of the game. The shooting for the game is unfortunately jank, there is no other way to put it, but it's extremely fun jank I highly enjoy. I will say right now that the 360 version of the HD port is the definitive way to play, solely because you can press the left thumbstick in to activate your weapon stance instead of using the horrid pressure controls on the DualShock 2 and 3. Every gun in the game felt meaty and fun to use. Shooting had a nice weight, and enemies reacted, most of the time, really spot on to where or how they were injured, which was a great detail. If you shot someone in the foot, they would start limping, and other things like that would occur. And you don't just get weapons, but also lots of gadgets and such as well, not to mention the awesome but sometimes confusing camo system to play with. Let's start with the camo system, as these are for more than just looking cool. Sure, I never figured out how to properly use them, but past stealth, some of the face paints and camos actually give you hidden perks like longer stamina or breath underwater. What's really nice is you can actually unlock some of these special paints and uniforms early if you choose the right option at the start of the game, and if you don't, you get a fairly goofy cutscene if you choose the wrong answer. But back onto the camo, if you can figure out how they work, they're really great to use, but I personally just love dressing Snake up in the most obnoxious costume I could, especially since all the cutscenes are rendered in real time opposed to being pre-rendered like most other games. There were so many optional mini side things to do, like climbing around the trees to find the croc cap, or finding hidden weapon caches, and so much more. Not to mention, Snake's stamina will go down if you don't eat, so you'll have to go hunting on occasion to get more food. Another fantastic element that really brings the survival system to life is that if you're injured often or harshly in certain ways, you'll actually have to perform some surgery on yourself to heal up wounds, and since resources can become hard to find, if you're not playing smart enough, you could possibly end up with injuries that last you quite a while. You also get a cool cutscene sometimes you do these, and you also get a cutscene for the first time you eat food. The boss battles, and I say this as someone who often hates boss battles in games, are quick, fun, and very memorable. They each play differently enough from each other, keeping the variety and flow coming, and not one of them was bad. At worst, they might have been a bit too simple, but even with that, they were still enjoyable, and all I can say right here is that the final fight with the boss is absolutely perfect. Also, here's the obligatory mention of how cool it is to be able to skip a boss fight early in a few different ways. In terms of the controls, overall, they were alright, but I would be lying if I said the quirks didn't occasionally get in the way. For example, while I know you can do it in the 3DS port, being able to crouch and sneak would have been nice. Also, for those wondering, the 3DS port has some really great controls with being able to move in and shoot. However, the one major issue that kills the game for me, motion controls, and they are not good, but the rest of the game is really good. So if you can get the 3DS version, I also recommend it. Swimming and climbing are also thankfully never an issue, and like I said earlier, the click for the weapons instead of the pressure usage is really nice. The only moment in the game I generally did not care for is the escort with Eva at the end, but I did have fun with how cinematic and explosive the bike chase is beforehand. Also, while these are sadly cut in the re-release of the game, in the original, there are two very neat additions that not many people know about. The first being the playable nightmare sequence by the name of Guy Savage, and the full-on side mode called Snake vs. Monkeys, which is a crossover with the Ape Escape series. Guy Savage is very bare bones, but extremely badass. Apparently it's the remnants of a cancelled project, and I am so glad it is here, because it is a blast to play. You go around killing zombies in over-the-top and gory ways, and while it is short-lived, it's so much fun. There isn't anything more to it, but it really makes me wish the final project had been finished. Snake vs. Monkeys is a fun addition, even if I didn't care much for it myself. The references to other stealth games and such are fun.
Snake, we need you. If you don't do this, who will?
It's not like someone else couldn't handle a stealth mission.
Don't say that. This is the genre we turned over every leaf in.
Why don't you make Sam or Gabe do the job?
The pokes at the series are amusing, and it's overall very charming, but having to run around and find each of the monkeys in a timed scavenger hunt really isn't all that fun to me. You do unlock some neat stuff if you beat it, but for me, it just really isn't all that worth it. Still, it is cool that it is in the original game, and I do wish that it was re-released somehow. But if you like Metal Gear and Ape Escape, this will definitely be worth trying out, at least for a moment. Visually, the game looks amazing upscaled, and generally still holds up all these years later. The jungle feels alive, the bases, while a bit on the generic side, still have quite a bit of personality to them, and everything feels unique and memorable, which is an impressive feat considering the game came out in 2004 originally. Even going back to the original game, despite a much slower frame rate and naturally the lower resolution, the game still looks incredible. It's just a darn fine looking game, and with the touch-ups given in the re-release, it looks even better. Now, one of the major changes in the re-release, both Subsistence and the HD port, was the inclusion of a more modern camera. In the original game, all the camera angles were fixed, with slight player control to them. Almost every critic online hates these, and overhypes them as the worst thing ever, but in reality, they really aren't all that bad. I prefer the new camera, sure, but they still work in the original and aren't game-breaking or anything. All the weapons are perfectly detailed, and the fact that weapon casings actually stick around is a great detail. And all the explosions and carnage that can happen when fighting enemies is neat. As I stated earlier, the cutscenes are all in real time, and are all directed perfectly, filled with perfect pacing and excitement that keeps them full of energy, and this made them a treat to watch. Seeing just how goofy you can make Snake look, along with all the interactable moments and elements in the cutscenes, which allowed you to see secrets, were really awesome. Also, I want to say that all the character designs are top-notch and extremely memorable, even if for most of the game, the Fox team isn't anything more than portraits on the call menu. Speaking of that, the game feels like the 60s, with all the technology used and the aesthetics that really help sell this. In terms of the audio department, everything is crisp and good, from the stellar voice acting.
Well, it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been showing off.
What did you say?
It's a nice gun, I'll give you that. But the engraving gives you no tactical advantage whatsoever. Unless you were planning to auction it off as a collector's item.
Snake, what in God's name?
How does it look?
It looks cool.
Huh?
It looks cool on you.
It does?
Yeah.
I don't think cool is the right word.
Ah, what a joyful scene.
Colonel Vogan.
Welcome to my country. And to my unit.
Does any of that make sense?
Not even a little.
You should come inside the box. Then you'll know what I mean.
Man, I don't want to know what you mean.
To all the sound effects used which help make the game come to life, right down to the unforgettable OST. Seriously, Snake Eater is one of the best intro songs to any game I have ever heard, but every song, from the alert tracks to all the renditions of Snake Eater, they are just all so great.
It's ordeal, the trial to survive. For the day we see new light, I give my life, not for honor, but for you.
Seconds to drop off. Stand by. Status okay. All green.
Prepare for drop off. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Spread your wings
And fly. God be with you.
Guns, ambience, and just random noises used throughout the game just make the world feel really real. Weapons definitely have a nice official punch to them, and the enemy cries and death sounds are all over the top in a good way.
There's something wrong. Support unit. Confirm their status. This is HQ.
Enemy sighted. Requesting backup.
Alrighty, spoiler time. You know the drill. Jump to the timestamp on screen to be spared spoilers. All who want to avoid some of the best moments in the game gone? Good, on we go. The ladder sequence is a perfect point of no return to show how far Snake has really come after killing the end. I love the secret camera shots for both seeing the boss and Sorrow finally together, and the fun one where you see Ocelot right outside the president's office window. The scene where Snake shoots boss a single time, just, it's hard to watch. But it's truly the perfect ending for the story. I love that Eva doesn't actually get the microfilm, the twist becoming another twist, and of course us learning that Ocelot was really Adam and his bullet was a blank really makes everything make sense and come together nicely. And with all that said, I really do love Snake Eater a whole bunch, and if I could only recommend only one Metal Gear Solid game to everyone, it would be this one. I often see fans try and dissuade that, but really, outside of some of the fan service here and there, the fact that this is a prequel and a fantastically self-contained story makes it all the more accessible to newcomers. Seriously though, from fantastic addictive gameplay to an absorbing and energetically enjoyable story, right down to telling how the entirety of one of my favorite game series started narratively, I simply must recommend you give the HD version a play today. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, please consider sharing the video with a friend or checking out my Patreon linked in the description below. I want to give a big thank you to not only the show's patrons, but also my great friend Orion Knight for making the wonderful Punish neat that you'll see in the videos like right now. Their social media accounts will be linked in the description as well. I also want to thank my amazing friend Mitchie for doing the awesome thumbnail art for the video. All his social media accounts will be linked in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or recommendations, leave them in the comments as I read and reply to everything. Until next time, this is Thierry Williamson signing off until the next video. See you guys!